Everything you've done here has been scripted. A little exercise set up by us.
Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we are letting the Patriots get inside our heads with 8 Metal Gear Solid theories that are probably true. For this list, we'll be looking at those fan theories and online threads that try to either understand moments in the epically convoluted Metal Gear story, or try to just give context to moments that need more than we were given. Possible spoiler warning for all of the Metal Gear Solid games ahead. Do any of these theories sound at all plausible, or are we drinking the regain? Let us know in the comments below. Before we continue, we publish content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of our latest videos. Twin Snakes VR. Metal Gear Solid 1 has a fairly straightforward story. There are moments of historical exposition and science fiction that almost feels science fact, but all in all, it's easy enough to digest. Metal Gear Solid 2 really opened up the Pandora's box of this already established universe, both by expanding on their best ideas and also by bringing more craziness into the mix. One of the well-established new pieces of lore is that Raiden experienced the events of the first game via VR training, and that all of the events of Shadow Moses were developed into a VR mission that soldiers like Raiden could experience for experience. A popular theory online is that the 2004 GameCube remake of MGS1 titled Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes is actually the VR version of the Shadow Moses events, and that you, the player, are actually playing as Raiden, playing as Snake inside of VR training. The more over-the-top features and advanced combat options could be credited to the GameCube's hardware if you want to be boring. The more interesting theory is that it's slightly inaccurate compared to the original because it was built through first-hand accounts from Snake and Colonel, as well as security footage and CCTV. Some small pieces of dialogue in MGS2 have muddied the legitimacy of this theory, which gave rise to the less popular theory that this is a VR mission that Otakon developed, hence the almost anime-esque and over-the-top action sequences.
An otaku is a guy like me who likes Japanimation.
Raiden didn't escape.
A list of names of the Patriots!
Metal Gear Solid 2 is one of the hardest games in the series for players to fully wrap their heads around. As a die-hard MGS fan, even I'm not willing to state on the record that I fully understand the intricacies of the MGS timeline. At the end of MGS2, the player is bombarded with information that explains the events of the game they've just played. One of the clearer story elements dropped is that the Patriots have masterminded all of the events that Raiden has played through in an effort to create a soldier on par with Solid Snake. No matter what decision Raiden made, it was expected by the Patriots, and Raiden played their game perfectly. One fan theory suggests that if the Patriots were able to concoct an event of such magnitude and detail that relied on the constant, accurate, and successful participation of one person, then it's not too far-fetched to believe that even after beating the game, that Raiden is still following their plan. The idea that Raiden is now a man of free will following the conclusion of the game is borderline credulous. Many players believe that Raiden never escaped their plan, especially considering the Raiden we meet in MGS4 is not the Raiden he said he wanted to become at the end of MGS2.
Go meet Big Mama.
Sniper Wolf is Quiet's daughter.
I've left my mark on you. I won't forget it.
One of our more far-fetched theories is that Sniper Wolf from MGS1 is the daughter of Quiet from MGS5. Who is the father, you ask? Well, let's discuss. With MGS4, MGS3, and MGS5, we've seen how many times Hideo Kojima likes to connect the characters from the pre-NES Metal Gear games and the post-NES Metal Gear games, and the connections are almost always far-fetched. Sigint from MGS3 becomes the DARPA chief in MGS1, Big Boss meets a Russian soldier Rykov who is identical in appearance to Raiden from Metal Gear Solid 2, Ocelot was not a double agent but a triple agent, assumably so he can appear in as many games as possible. All of these reasons and coincidences are ridiculous and constant. So is it so far-fetched to believe that our very own Venom Snake slept with Quiet, and after escaping, she raised the child in the desert for it to eventually become Sniper Wolf? Players had a feeling that there would be some connection between Quiet and Sniper Wolf, so it's possible that the dots are being forcefully connected. But after learning that Venom Snake isn't the sterile big boss we thought we were playing as, Is it so crazy to believe that he didn't sneak around Mother Base for a little afternoon delight? Yeah, probably.
Vengeance was what drove me to them.
You are a fool to come back here. Stupid man.
Senator Armstrong and President Sears worked together.
Slippery little bastard!
The main antagonist of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is none other than Stephen Armstrong, a senator for Colorado 10 years after the events of Metal Gear Solid 2. Stephen Armstrong holds strong political and personal beliefs of both Darwinism and that morality and the societal sense of good and bad or right and wrong are made informed by those with power. Sound familiar? Well, it seems very similar to the beliefs of a previous President Sears, otherwise known as our MGS2 antagonist, Solidus Snake. Although their age differences would make it less likely that they rolled in the same political circles, there is a strong theory online that Senator Armstrong was a protege of Sears, and that it was Sears who corrupted his mind and helped him eventually be led down the path that would end as Metal Gear Rising.
Don't this, Senator!
Otacon is the hero.
How long you gonna stay in there?
Are you one of them?
One of my personal favorite theories that's been floating around the internet for a few years is the idea that Hal Emmerich, codename Otacon, is the most important piece to the puzzle that led to the demise of the Patriots. Had the Patriots managed to gain control of Otacon, it seems as if they may have been able to avoid their eventual downfall, because even though it is ultimately Solid Snake and Big Boss who are seen as the ones to bring an end to them, it is Otacon who enabled Snake to do the things he had to do on the battlefield.
Will you please stop sending me pictures of the Commandant?
It's shown in MGS5 just how intertwined Otacon's family is with the Patriots, and how Otacon ultimately rose above his mold of a broken man to bring an end to the world's biggest threat via the Fox Alive program that was built off code developed by his own sister, Emma Emmerich. Meeting Hal was the best thing Snake ever did for the fate of humanity, and there are many who believe that the otaku-loving genius is the quiet hero of the whole story.
Only you can save those hostages. Got it?
Solid Snake is the bad guy.
Promise, Jim? Now you want to shut me up?
Calm down. What's wrong with you? I just told you I was here to save you.
The narrative of Solid Snake good, Big Boss bad was a strong story element throughout the events of MGS1 and 2, and to a lesser extent 4. But after MGS5 released, players were expecting an anti-hero story that showed the degradation of Big Boss and the journey of how he became the evil legend early fans of the series had built up in their minds. Instead, we got a story of two men, Venom and Big Boss, who saved child soldiers, prisoners of war, and created a home for themselves with Outer Haven, a place where soldiers were not treated as disposable tools, just as Big Boss was during the events of MGS3.
Now go! Let the legend come back to life.
After leaving the US to create the Diamond Dogs, a private army that were famous for their heroics, the US military and government continued to abuse Big Boss by cloning him without his consent and constantly trying to collapse his private forces. And even throughout all of this, he never waged war on the US. It was Solid Snake, a soldier who was constantly and continually manipulated by the US government, who was sent in to topple the two leaders during the events of Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. Even at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4, the Patriots still arrange it so Solid Snake has to kill Big Boss in order to bring an end to their power. And for the third and final time, he does, eliminating possibly the greatest soldier and war hero of all time. This theory isn't black and white. In fact, it has a lot of grey area, but watching Solid Snake be the tool that constantly ends the altruistic goals of Big Boss certainly doesn't make Solid Snake seem like a good guy. The war economy is the Patriots malfunctioning. Metal Gear Solid 4 is without a doubt the most convoluted and far-fetched story in the entire franchise. It takes some wild ideas about war economies and the ideals and values of war and combines them with science fiction, fluffy dialogue, and some of the longest cutscenes the gaming industry has ever seen. It's amazing. One of the solid pieces of information that the player learns is that the Patriots AI controlled the war economy, and this has led players to theorize, what if the reason for the perpetual war was actually a glitch in the programming? The Patriots and the Patriots AI were created by people that admired Big Boss. So even though they didn't agree with his mission and his insubordination, they wanted to create a world where soldiers like him would be necessary. Essentially, the war economy was a malfunction in the AI that was intentionally placed by the Patriots. Did any of you understand what I just said? Because I barely did. It was all a simulation.
You're familiar with the Shadow Moses incident?
You know I covered it in VR.
To fully unpack this theory would take a tad of time. The convoluted story of Metal Gear Solid 2 was always intended to be the final chapter of the series. Hideo Kojima had no intentions of continuing the story, so even though the events of Metal Gear Solid 4 canonically prove MGS2 to be real, it doesn't discount the theory that the events of Metal Gear Solid 2 upon release were taking place inside a VR simulation, and that none of these events were real. The evidence is all contained within the story, a story with many fourth wall breaking moments intended by Kojima to teach the player how dangerous technology can be when we start to believe in the fiction we see. The game ends with an important line from Snake saying,
The memories you have and the role you were assigned are burdens you had to carry. It doesn't matter if they were real or not. That's never the point.
Raiden's general misunderstanding of what is real and what is fake, as well as the constant themes of AI and VR control throughout MGS2, has led players to think that Kojima was simply saying, who cares? Stop trying to analyze and find answers to the experience you are having and simply enjoy the experience. Not everything makes sense, and that's okay.
We're not just pawns in some simulation game, you know.
Yes, you are.
The unbelievable story, the malfunctioning AI, the constant references to how far VR technology has come, as well as the simple fact that the plot has some moments that simply don't make sense when you expand on them, has led players to be almost certain that MGS2 was a VR simulation.
Everything you've done here has been scripted, a little exercise set up by us.
Exercise.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from MojoPlays and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of our latest videos.